This is Dance Studio 411, where we answer your real-life questions about your toughest studio life predicaments. Parent problems, teacher turnover, student challenges, policy dilemmas, and so much more. Let's talk about what's keeping you awake at night and what you can do about it. Here are your hosts, Suzanne Blake Garrity and Jill Tyrone.
Our special guest today is Lizzie Makenzie. She has been dancing, teaching, coaching, and choreographing in Chicago and the Chicagoland area for over 20 years. She is the co-founder of Extensions Dance Company and the Extensions Dance Center. Lizzie is originally from Toronto, Ontario, and she is a graduate of the Performing Arts Boarding School, Interlochen Arts Academy in Interlochen, Michigan. Lizzie has performed, taught, and coached dance all over the world with various organizations including the Jazz Dance World Congress, Dance Masters of America, Chicago Dance Connection, and RDA. She has been an artist in residence at Northwestern University, East Carolina University, Illinois State University, the University of Illinois, Webster University, Western Michigan University, and Grand Valley State. Her class was listed by Dance Spirit magazine as one of the top 3 dance classes to take in Chicago, and she has been quoted and featured numerous times in Dance Teacher magazine. Lizzie has held positions on the advanced professional faculty at both Hubbard Street Dance Center and Visceral Dance Center, among others. Lizzie's choreography can be seen on various professional companies, and she has received countless awards for her work. At the core of Lizzie's love for teaching is the joy it brings to her to see her students gain confidence as people and artists through their work and in the dance studio. She is known for an intense teaching style with high expectations, yet she continues to foster a loving and supportive learning environment through mentoring and the expression of respect she shows her students. Through her extensive and continued education in the field of her knowledge and ability to communicate and share, she has a level of teaching that is unmatched. We are very glad to welcome you today, Lizzie.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. It's really nice to be here.
I love that you are always generous with your sharing with so many parts of the dance community. And, you know, I love it when people tell their story of how they got to be, because it usually has some cool twists and turns. So I know our listeners would love to hear about you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's nice to share. I wonder how people did it before all of this. We have access to everything now, right? And we can do all of this. But back in the day when they had to go to networking events, which we still do, but to actually talk to other people that are doing the same thing that you're doing, it's a great resource, because it's particularly our business can be very draining. And I personally gain a lot of inspiration from my fellow dance studio owners and teachers and choreographers. So
awesome. Well, you have such an amazing list of accolades to your name, but you're all very, very gracious. So I know our listeners are always interested in hearing about your dance background.
Yeah, sure. So it's kind of funny because I never intended to have a dance studio. Actually, when I was younger, of course, I was like, oh, I want to have a dance studio someday. But then over time, I realized how I could see clearly from all the dance studios I worked with what a difficult business it was. So I came to Chicago and started dancing with Giordano Dance Chicago. And I was with that organization for 7+ years. And then I've danced with a variety of smaller companies, and took a year between my 2 big companies as well, because after Giordano, I joined River North Dance Company. I was with River North for 6 years. Both companies, amazing experience. During the time, I founded Extensions Dance Company because some kids that I taught, wanted me to continue to do choreography. It just sort of happened very organically, right?
Cool.
And of course, we get out there and we start growing, and eventually the studio was born out of necessity.
That's awesome. And so, you have so many accolades to your names, but on a day-to-day basis, what's a day in your life like, Lizzie?
Oh, well, I go to bed late. So I usually get up around 8 a.m., which I know for some may seem very late. I don't have kids. So I get up about 8, grab my coffee, and right away I sit down on my laptop and I start returning emails. I'm ordering costumes. I'm all of the things, that we all do. I start doing that usually for a couple hours. And then oftentimes, but not all the time, I try to get my workout in. I work out around 10:30 a.m. Some days there's just too much to do, and so I'll skip the workout, but I try to do it at least 3 times a week. And then usually I'll come back home, make some food, back on my laptop for a few hours. Then I'm off to the studio for usually about 5 hours at night. Weekends, I work Friday nights as most of us do. Saturdays, 9 to 5:30. Sundays, usually anywhere between 9 to 9. I usually work at least 8 hours on Sundays too.
And tell us about so at Extensions, how many company dancers or competitive students do you have?
So we have 47 in the company this year, and that's ranging in age from, I think our youngest is 5 up to 18. And that seems like, I don't know how some of you guys do it that have, I know some people have over 100 and hundreds of company members. I just can't even imagine. It's such a huge responsibility.
It is. It's a lot. I know this year we're at our max of 74, 75 kids, and we're like, wow, okay. You start to, it goes back, and I love what energy our competitive teams bring to the studio life, like the energy that they generate, but it's also the time that it takes to manage the program is extraordinary. So some people say, oh, the amount of time. Well, but there's something beautiful about what happens in and out of those classrooms. So I think that's good. But the purpose of, the topic today, which I think was, we can get all excited about our competitive kids, because they're really usually the ones that they're there and they're working towards a big goal. Yeah. But the real hard spot for our teachers and studio owners is, how do I get inspired to choreograph another recital routine? Like, when you've given it all already, how do you get inspired?
Yeah, that it's definitely the $1 million question. And a recital routine or a competition routine. I think I counted recently, I don't remember the number, but I think I choreographed, and I'm not quite done, but I'm close, like 37 dances for my company this year. And I outsource a lot. I don't do all of it, but I still do 37 dances, right? Mm. So I'm a big advocate for taking care of yourself. Like I mentioned, my workouts, though that's huge for me, just to clear my head for a moment and not feel like I'm always on the grind. Owning a dance studio, there is a point where you have to accept that you have to walk away and know that there's still a ton of work to be done, that you have to walk away for a moment sometimes. And that was hard for me to learn, right? So taking time for yourself is a big one. Mm-hmm. Personally, for me, and the other big one for me has been, I've started to study Gaga, and I know I spoke about this with your mom this summer, but I started to study Gaga. I go in the summers, and I unplugged to a degree for a couple of weeks. I've gone to Israel and studied for 2 weeks for myself. And that's something that I can do, as I age as well, because it's not just a thing for young people. So, and that really feeds me for the year. Awesome. I'm able to keep drawing on that, and I can get into the studio. I can just move around and improvise a little bit. It just, brings a little bit of extra life to my work and to how I feel about my work.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know, because it's like sort of like, what are the daily habits of creatives? And I think we all have our different method, but to your point, you have to fill up your own self first before you can keep generating newly. And I think that's awesome. And do you find inspiration for, like, does an idea for choreography come to you from, does it come in all different ways? Is it sometimes a song, or is it sometimes of memory? Like, what comes up for you usually?
It's all different things. For the younger kids, especially, a lot of times it's the music. I was going to say too, like they inspire me, teaching is hard because it's sometimes hard to quantify, how effective it is at any given time on any given student. And, of course we care deeply about our work. So, I want to be able to quantify, is this kid learning? Are they growing, under my care? But a lot of times I can, if I look closely and I make sure that I humanize the students instead of just seeing them as my students. They're little humans, and like, oh, this is so great. Like, I really want to give such and such an opportunity to really move. We've been working a lot of technique, a lot of progressions. I want to give them the opportunity to move. And so I can gain inspiration actually from them too, or even asking them, what songs do you guys like? Or what have you found any cool music lately, or anything like that? The kids are a great source for that sort of thing.
So what is your method to start? Do you still choreograph, or how many recital routines come out of your school?
That would be a smaller portion. I think I just put together a list the other day, and it was like 13.
Sure.
So sure. It's not a ton at all. But I think that I think it depends on how you go about it too, because I think there's the method with a more advanced class, for example. You can wait a little longer, and then, I've done the thing where I wait till like those last 4 classes and I just bang out a dance, because I'm like, I want to spend as much time on tech and the educational process as I can. So I bang out a dance in those 4 weeks for an advanced class. Obviously you can't do that for the little ones, right? But if you start like early February, which seems really early for some maybe, but you're treating it as an opportunity to help them learn how to move. So they're combos, right? Like you're putting together little combos, and maybe they're not even to the recital music, but you're starting to build framework, and they know that, hey, you guys need to keep this in your pocket because we're going to use it in our dance. We're going to use this phrase. So I want you to keep practicing it, even send a video to them. So when it comes time, they're excited about their choreography too then, right?
Yeah. I like that. What do you think about sometimes when studio owners and teachers get a little burnt out, or they're worried that maybe Miss Sarah's choreography for a recital isn't as good as, Miss Teresa over here? So how do you, I don't want to call standardize it, but do you ever do do you ever recommend a studio owner get their teachers together to group choreograph some of those, what I call them, recreational recital routines?
I recognize this conundrum, the one in terms of like better choreography versus, not, and I think we all struggle like that. Like, is my choreography good? Is it still good? Do the kids still like it? Is it still relevant? Is it still current? And I think that is just a natural process that we each have to go through as an artist, and come to terms. If I'm not feeling like my choreography is relevant, then I can take the necessary steps to make it more relevant. And that doesn't mean copying other people's choreography, but researching myself, maybe some improvisation for myself, actually getting in the studio and moving a little bit. In terms of the group choreography, I've never done it for that reason, but I have done it for the reason if like a teacher is teaching 2 classes and they're smaller classes, or one is very small, one is a little bigger, I recommend that they combine. I'm like, hey, why don't you give those little ones, it's a smaller class, but why don't you give them like a feature in the bigger kids class, so it's still like, maybe they have a 45-second feature here and a 45-second feature there. So there's a minute and a half they have of their choreography, but they get to work with the big kids and be in that process too. I think any sort of collaboration is always a good thing. Right?
Yeah. Or like one of the things that we try to have our teachers at our own studio encourage the kids is that sharing just of them. Like you said, it's almost like letting the kids do some of their own improv to get to the next step of the piece. Like, what would you do here? Or what's missing? Or just getting them involved. So like you said, maybe leveraging the students to be the participation award for that.
I love that idea, actually. Like, what do you guys think should be next? Oh, that's a great idea. Let's frame it like this or whatever. It really is teaching them about collaboration too, as well as helping you with, staying inspired and feeling very invested in the piece. So that's cool.
And then, of course, there's the Lizzie to the rescue on this part of this process. So sometimes studio owners will say, oh, okay, so in this recital class, things are moving along really well, and we're confident that these parents who are paying for dance for their kids are going to hit the stage and those kids are going to look great. And then there's another class where like, oh no, it's not done. Like, what's the good measurement of when a piece should be done before recital for these kids?
This is a very interesting question because, I've had the studio itself for only 8 years, which seems like a long time, but we really just started to build our rec program a few years ago because we were founded on the company. So I'm learning a lot as I go about the rec company. So I actually just sent out, I think a couple of days ago, to my teachers, hey, I know it seems early, but I got to order costumes over the Christmas break. So I need you guys, blah, blah, blah. And I included in that message this time that the assumption is we're going to close your classes, meaning there's no more enrollment after the end of January. And the assumption is that you're starting your pieces February 1st. I didn't tell them to, but I was like, hey, everybody does need to be on the same page with this because, as you said, these are our clients and the parents do expect to be able to quantify their investment in some sort of way. And so when their kid's coming home, they want to hear, oh, you're starting to work on your dance that we're going to bring our whole family to.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Or to have that, that's the thing, right? It's communicating the expectation to the teachers, because I think even for ourselves, I mean, I'm overseeing teachers who are through this process, not responsible for it to be me the one choreographing, but I am responsible for, like you said, producing the outcome of the class, to have the parents be like, wow, that was amazing. Little Sarah loves her 5 to 7-year-old, acro jazz and hip hop class, and weren't they adorable? So
yeah. I mean, I'm kind of on both sides of it. I'm definitely learning about setting those expectations and managing and making sure that's all happening.
Yeah, which actually I have another question for you that you weren't prepared for me to ask, but I feel like it goes well with this topic because we have you on our show here, our podcast. The parent that sits in the waiting room, who's the competitive dance parent, who thinks the choreography is not good enough or it's not whatever enough, and they're getting judgy about that from the waiting room. Do you ever run into this?
Oh, I mean, not directly, but I'm sure I do 100%. And again, that's been a huge challenge of mine, just the integration of a rec program with my very high functioning company is actually proving to be quite a challenge in general. I would say, the culture at Extensions Dance Company, and therefore Extensions Dance Center, is a very important part of that. And I do my very best to make sure that my parents know that it's important for them to educate themselves, and to know what their children are getting at any given time. Because sometimes I think that judginess can come from a bit of a lack of education or understanding, what your kid is getting. I know they have this like really polished dance over here that they had 500 private lessons for, exactly. But they're learning a lot in that studio right now, right? Yeah. And just helping them to understand and to helping them to know that they can trust us. Yeah. You can trust me that your child is learning in every classroom they're in.
Right. Or when they see, for example, the kids having what might occur to them to be goofing off or not taking it seriously. We put a musical theater piece on our mini kids this year. It is inherently more fun for them because they're being able to be free and light about it. Whereas some parents are like, serious lyrical piece, No. Like you said, educate the parent to relax.
Relax. And honestly, like that stuff, I'm trying to like just pull in more of that stuff, what you're talking about, because some of my kids, I'm like, I don't understand why you don't smile when you dance. Like, how does it not just feel so good? You just want to smile, Like,
exactly.
I had a child actually cry. I was just trying to get her to smile. I'm like, please just smile. Literally, I'm like, but why are you crying? I just want you to smile when you're dancing.
You're crying.
I wasn't being aggressive. I was just like, I just want to see your beautiful smile. And so to your point, it's like, just because something's fun doesn't mean they're learning less.
Right. I love that. And so so kind of to come full circle on this, when we're helping ourselves, if we're the teacher, for the studio owner who is also choreographing, it's taking care of yourself. You've got to take care of yourself first. It's the hardest thing to do because everybody else seems more important, but that's going to source you internally. Maybe, and for some people that's meditation, and for some people it's exercise, prayer, whatever it is. But you definitely, I know for me, if the quiet moments of the morning are my only opportunity to take 10 minutes to put something like thoughtful in my mind, that's how I stay creative, so getting access to that and protecting it at the time of year when we have to be at our most creative is for sure key. Yes, so I love it.
I would agree.
That's
taking
awesome.
A little vacation too. That's one thing we started to do. Last year I implemented the 5 days off for Thanksgiving.
Good.
We used to just do like the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we were full force. And I feel like the whole energy changed afterwards. Like everyone needs that break. We're more productive because we took the 5 days, right?
I love that. Yeah, this is the first year we're taking the 5 days Thanksgiving, and we're actually not coming back from New Year's until that first Monday after, because we used to always grind it out like the day after New Year's and something, we're in the frozen tundra of New Hampshire too. People are they need a little buffer, and then you become the best version of yourself after that. Yes. So I love it. That's awesome. So if someone wanted to connect with you, where do people reach out or learn more about all your great work?
Oh, I would love to connect with anyone. And Instagram, Skizzy Mac, at Skizzy Mac is my Instagram.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes. Skizzy Mac. I'll make sure we follow you.
Yeah, I just started following you.
Is it SKIZZIE?
M as in Mary, ACK. Yep, okay. Skizzy Mac. And then obviously Lizzie at Extensions Dance if there's ever, somebody wants to reach out personally, I'm happy loving to make connections of any sort, of course.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, you're a very generous, kind, thoughtful, creative light in this industry, in this small world of dance. And I know that's the cool thing. You're humble enough to know that we're all learning through this process. And that's like sort of our mantra at Dance Studio Owner.com. It's like, listen, let's all have a beginner's mind about everything we're doing, because that's how we become truly great people. So thanks for being our special guest today.
Oh my gosh, Suzanne, it's my pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Dance Studio 411. Visit us online at dancestudio411.com for more great resources and to submit a question for a future episode. Our number one goal is to help you build a successful dance studio business and keep your passion for dance alive.